First and foremost, let me appreciate the Ogun State Branch chairman who has made this possible. I also want to appreciate the entire conference planning team for the privilege and opportunity to share my thoughts. I know time has been well spent so far, and I also acknowledge the fact that I have a challenging session having been placed behind two presidents of the institutes, the immediate past and the current president. So what a tough assignment I have this afternoon. But I will do my bit, share my thoughts and experiences, because we don't know it all. But it's in sessions like this that we all learn. Iron sharpeneth iron. So the word says. So I will share my thoughts concerning the subject on talent management. The topic, I have also tried to tweak it a bit so that for brevity, we can then be able to understand and appreciate the subject we're trying to do, to talk on. While I try to share my screen, I hope it's coming up. If we can see it, please let me know.
Yes, you're live, sir.
Okay, if the screen is up, I will again say thank you for having me here today. And I will only quickly just share my thoughts around the subject, which, like I said, I tweaked slightly to read effective HR strategies for attracting and retaining top talent. That the work environment is competitive and job market is competitive will be an understatement, given what has been shared, particularly by the immediate past president of the Institute, Mr. Wale Adebayo. So I'll go quickly. I have looked at this from my perspective, and I'll be looking at 6 areas. Some of them I will not dwell so heavily on because I know we'll probably have touched them in one way or the other. So I'm going to have a very short introduction looking at the twofold challenge that we are currently confronting, given the topic that I have with me. Why do people join, stay, or exit the business? Because the flip side of staying is to leave. And then how do we go about attracting top talents? And in so doing, what kind of experiences would they have staying with the organization or working with us? And then what are the things that we can use to actually keep such top talents within the business? We also know it is almost impossible to have your top talent remaining with you for a lifetime. But for a considerable period of time, we need to enjoy the benefits of such talents if we're able to attract and draw them in. And as we go along, this 6th part is actually going to be something that we all would have to do as we go along. We all have to introspect, and at the end of the day, we engage. At the end of the session, we engage ourselves to review what we know, what we're doing, against what should be, or we also then together share our experiences. So having said it, the twofold problem that I have put up is, can you see the slide, please? It looks like it's not showing from this end.
It's showing, sir. We can see.
Okay, thank you. So from this end, the twofold problem, like I did mention, is the fact that we have huge unemployment. As we talk, we experience high youth unemployment, or what we call underemployment, in many developing nations. And in Nigeria, it's said to be about 54–55% of the youth are out of job or underemployed. And at the same time, we suffer lack of talent. Not that we suffer lack of people people is different from talents. They require skills and cognitive. So we, on the one hand, have shortage of talents. That alone has brought about another challenge of its own. The talents that are available get well priced or overpriced sometimes, and they seem to be highly mobile. So we constantly have organizations having to replace employees because they are also being highly sought after in other places, and that becomes a problem. And that's probably why we also need to look at this subject. So the business suffers because the business will bleed. The cost of replacement, as Glassdoor put it, it costs an average of $4,000 to recruit a new employee. Besides the fact that you lose money, depending on the frequency of the recruitment process or effort, the number of days that is required to fill critical or crucial roles is estimated to be about 52. That is where it is even fast in some cases. I've seen situations where for 4 or 5 months, you're struggling to get a suitable employee into a role. So if you look at all of this, it's already posing its own challenge for the business and for all of us. So the question is, why then do people strategy do we need to bring people in and to keep them with ourselves? Then we need to understand, why do people join? And why would I want to stay in an organization? I will start with some of my thoughts and perspective, though it may be common to some, but generally, we need to understand the background from which I'm coming. There is a very huge need for organizations to look at their employment value propositions. What is on the offer, both from the company and from the employer side. So we need a compelling employment value proposition. In fact, studies have shown that where you have a compelling employment value proposition, which means you have an environment or a situation that makes it very attractive for people to achieve their own goal while achieving the that the turnover rate is reduced by as much as 69, 70%. Having said this, what then is employment and why would they come in and not exit? Because only recently I've had interaction with one or two colleagues of mine, though not in people management profession, who said they walked into an organization and in 2 weeks they stepped out, not up to a month. For an employee to come in and then exit in 2 weeks, it tells so much about the environment of work, because they spent, according to this colleague of mine, it took about 3 or 4 months for the process to be concluded, only to be let go. Not let go in any case. He ran away from the, if I want to place it the way it was. He actually stepped out and never bothered to go for the 2 weeks pay. In fact, that tells you that everything in that organization needs to be looked at. And so that's one of the reasons we need to ensure that our employment value proposition is not just on the paper. It's not just on the paper. Is how do we actualize all of this? So again, the company and the needs of the staff, or that is actually where you get the best market in itself, and the employee is part of the relationship. So it's a relationship where both are enjoying the benefits coming from each other. The area of intersection, if you look at the the diagram at the left side, bottom, you will notice that there is a small area of intersection. The bigger or the wider that area of intersection is, the better for the organization, because employees would most likely stay in because they have something that is mutually beneficial, and they would rather want to stay where they find that comfort for themselves. But the thinner it becomes, the more the likelihood that an employee would exit as quickly as possible. So it's important that we create that. We'll dwell a bit more with some of this as a better understanding of where we're coming from. We just spoke about employment value proposition, and I ended that by saying it's an area of intersection between what the organizations value and what. Yes, sir.
The slides has not moved. We are still at the introduction. That's what we are seeing.
Wow. Let me upload again. If that is the case, then there should be a challenge. The slide I'm actually.
Okay, so it's moving now.
On the 5th. Slides. Okay, let me come out of it and reload. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Is the slide up now?
Yes, it's up.
No, I do not. No, from my hand, it's not even there. So I need to reload again. Please, once you can see the slide, let me know. Okay.
We can see the
like
slide.
I did mention, what exactly are you seeing on the slide so that I know? Hello, sir.
Why do people join and stay?
Am I audible?
Yes. Can you hear me, sir? Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can.
Yes, sir. What we can see is why do people join and stay at an organization?
And it looks like a flow chart. Is that it?
Yes. Why do people join and stay at an organization? From employment value chain proposition, from employment value proposition to employee retention.
No, it looks like a flow chart. Is that it?
No, sir. Maybe you need to shut this down and repower it again.
Wow, what a network.
And if you don't mind, you can just push it to me via WhatsApp and I can share from here. If you can push to me via WhatsApp, I can just share directly from here, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it was a net. I had a glitch. I have to change provider again. So you have this chart. Okay, thank you very much. Let me take it off from there. I'm sure we will all have the privilege of seeing this slide sometimes, and to that extent, this was what. Okay, so this was where I stopped. If you can hear me, please.
Yes, we can
And
hear
then
you, sir.
moving on. We're here. Are we together now?
Yes, sir. We are together, sir.
Sorry about this network challenge.
We can hear you, sir.
Wow. Like this. Okay. You can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me. At least
Yes,
the
sir.
first thing is I'm not sure I'm hearing you audibly. It's is either a delay communication.
Please just go ahead, sir. As long as your slide is moving, if we encounter any challenge, we can always call your attention to it, sir.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, thank you very much. If you can, like I mentioned, I was trying to talk to this part of the slide. Why do people join and stay? Okay, I think it's a network challenge, and I think it's actually from my end. But that notwithstanding, I would appreciate if by a signal of a hand, we can know when I am inaudible. So, like I did mention, the employment value proposition, I haven't explained the interception and the interaction between employer's value and the employee's value, which is actually what the employment value proposition should deal with. The wider or bigger that space or span is, the better for the organization. And it is not just a proposition that should sit in our respective offices or what we mount and place on the corporate website. It is something that we must leave out. And what am I saying here? When the value proposition, it can only manifest by what the employee would experience, having been a member of that organization. So if an employee experience in that organization is warm, pleasant, the longer such an employee wants to remain in the business. And that invariably means such an employee is more engaged, is also more committed to the cause of the business. Is it that the experience of the employee, which I didn't show on this chart anyway, because I was focusing on the subject, the topic, the employee's experience could be unpleasant and it brings about disengagement instead of engagement that we see on the chart that we have, which means it's negative. But looking at the fact that the employee is satisfied and happy working and his experience is quite good, my thought as shared here is that such an employee becomes more engaged, more committed, wanting to deliver value both to himself and the organization. So it brings about retention. I will say again that employee retention is a lot of things put together. So is a potpourri of things. It's not just an element. Using my own personal experience, I once worked in one multinational company, and when I joined, there was a question that put me off almost the second week, which was who brought you? So I wondered, who? I've joined the wrong organization. Who brought you? I do not have anybody who brought me. God was with me, though. So I was scared that, come, is there any room for progression here? Lo and behold, in that same organization, I spent about 13, 14 years. What has changed? What changed was that from that onboarding process where somebody asks me, who brought you? The others that I met and the people that I worked with created an environment that made me not wanting to leave. And at that time, each job that I got, I compare it with the current situation I was, as it were then, to the new place. And if the new place does not meet the requirement, not the pay requirement, I need to emphasize, the environment was so warm, was homely, people can interact and interface, you share your thoughts without anybody coming to hit back at you for whatever you suggested, whether it's deemed to be negative or positive. It was an environment I wanted to remain for a long time. So, like I said, that brings a potential for retention, because such an employee experience has brought some engagement, a lot of commitment to the cause of the business, and ultimately a retention. We also know that any employee who is satisfied surely would take care of the customer satisfaction. Don't forget that even when the IPP spoke earlier on, he told us about the need as HR to be business focused, because you cannot say, oh, the employees are satisfied, so I'm okay. What about the outcome of keeping all of us together, the reason for the business being, which is to satisfy the customer? It may not be a product, it may be a service. And I know, or I sense, a lot of our participants are coming from the faith-based environment. We should focus on the cause. The customer satisfaction is not always in product. So even in the service that we deliver, the customer must go back with a pleasant experience. And here you will find under this chart, the employee value proposition could be assumed to be the promise we were making, because the guy has not really joined us. And then he comes in, he faces the reality. Is the reality pleasant or unpleasant? And whichever way it goes, the individual also has a response. The response may be in form of engagement or disengagement. He doesn't want to belong anymore because our environment is hostile. Or he wants to stay put because he's having the best of time, not just by pay, but by his own experiences. So he wants to hang on and enjoy more and create value even for the business. So it's not just about himself. And then ultimately, the result is either that the employee stays or leaves, the customers are satisfied or dissatisfied. Another indicator of whether you have good employee or not is the customer's feedback. So if your customer's feedback suggests that the employees are not doing well, then we're in a very big problem. As I transit, you would find out that all of this will come out of what we do in HR. As HR practitioners, the value chain is very significant and very important. And that is why I've brought this up. I hope you can still see the slide.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we
Oh,
can.
thank you. So I was going to say that the value chain of HR encompasses everything that the business needs in the people area. And that is the area of talent management. An employee, even before joining, is hiring the business or is looking away from the business for various reasons. So we need to understand that we create that environment. We're very instrumental to creating that environment. So from pre-recruitment, even onto exit, we all have a role to ensure the employee is either engaged or disengaged. So we need to play a role. That's why you see the value chain. You bring in the employee, you train and develop them, you continue to manage them, and that is the space we need to do a lot more. And even when some employee leaves, do not forget their value has not terminated or ended. In actual fact, at exit, they play a significant role. We will find that out sooner than later. Some employees are ambassadors of the business, whether positively or negatively. And we need to also know that it is easier to bring in people, but at exit management is in some instances even far more important than bringing people in. For instance, the experience I shared with you, someone who came in and left 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks after. What experience is that? What kind of ambassador will he be for such a business? So we need to understand that And that is all in our space. Having said all of this, how then do we attract top talents? How do we attract top talents? I'm not going to dwell in the traditional or the conventional things that we do, because I know most of us, if not all of us, know that already. But I will highlight a few that I think are topical and should be looked at. We need to build an employer brand that is strong enough, that is attractive enough, that makes people want to come to work with the business. Building employer's brand is not about the razzmatazz of placing advertisements. It's not about the razzmatazz of ever being in the face of employees or would-be employees. Yes, it is part of it, but a lot goes into our own corporate identity. We need to showcase the organization's value. What does this organization represent? What benefits are there in this organization? What career growth opportunities do I have through the various channels? Like I said, social media is very prominent and powerful now. We also can create our own career pages. And so, but one that is far more important is that of employee testimonials. Your current employees and exited employees are also helping to build the employer's brand. So we need to be sensitive to the fact that every experience, every interaction that we have with any of the stakeholder is part of building that brand. It may be positive, it may also be negative. People would hear more of the negative feedback quicker than the positive. So we need to be careful to continue to manage the reputation and the corporate identity of our respective organization. And that sits with us as leaders, not just as HR. HR is influential, no doubt, but every manager of people, and that is virtually everybody. If you manage a person or 10, you are still influencing and affecting them. So we need to know that the brand is being created in the minds of people, both within and outside, by what we do. So we need to create a very strong employer's brand. And like I said, various medium, by which we can do that. We have advert, we have the social media, we have the career page, and so many other tools that we can use. I also would emphasize the fact that today, like I said, social media is a method that has a wider reach. So, and it is often something that the Generation Y and Z would not do away from. So it's a very veritable tool to use or adopt to attract candidates into a fold, because they can see us quite easily than placing even adverts sometimes. There's also the opportunity, which has been with us, and a lot of people are currently using that, is to use talent solution tools. I do not know. There's a business side of LinkedIn. People should sign up to and pay a token, because it opens us to almost 1 billion potential workforce, which is quite out of our reach as individuals if we want to do anything of our own. It opens up to us potential employee across the globe. There are other tools, like I said, LinkedIn, Visage, and many more that runs on artificial intelligence to help you search, given the parameters of the requirement for the job position or roles that you are seeking for. So it makes a lot of sense to try to do this as part of the recruitment process. I've spoken about sourcing inside out. And what I meant by sourcing inside out is use your current employees to attract people from outside. But how do you use your current employee if they are not well treated? If I'm treated shabbily, will I be a good ambassador to that business, or I'm looking for a way out? So we need to open up opportunities to our existing employee. If the environment is quite good, people will aspire to move up the ladder, even within. But if it's hostile, people will quickly want to leave. And someone who runs away from your business cannot be a positive brand manager or brand ambassador. So it would ultimately not be able to do that. So we need to create an exciting environment. Sourcing from within, that creates a career path. People want to stay on if the environment gives them opportunity for career growth or professional growth. It also helps them to say, oh, this is a beautiful place to be. Come and join us. So you can source from inside out. There is also another category, and this one is always very interesting, the passive candidates. And the attributes of the passive candidates are quite good and quite interesting. These are people who have the required skills. And from the chart you are looking at, this candidate universe chart, you will notice that research has shown that between 60 and 85% of people who are in the employment market are passive candidates, meaning they are settled. These are candidates who have skills that are good. They have the required skills. They could be the one that we call top talents because their skills are in demand, but they are currently employed. And so they are not looking for job. So in some instances, I would say job is looking for them. They are the people who will need to seek or sought after, because these opportunities that are available must be attractive for them to want to leave their current job. So the passive candidates are the candidates that can hit the ground running, I must say, because like we said, they are not projecting themselves. We already know they are good enough. They are holding on to current jobs and they are doing well in there. That's why they are not seeking. But in our call and in the competitiveness of the job market, there is need to always want to go for the best. And how do you get the best? The best is passive. So you need to draw them in to be part of your business. So these are people that we look for. So as recruiters in HR, we need to find a way of identifying these individuals, and there are various other ways by which you can do that. But beyond that identification, we also need to initiate contact with them. And in doing that is to build a long-term relationship. It is not about just knowing them. Because if you do not have a relationship with such one, it will be much more difficult, even when we therefore need them in the future. So it is important that as a recruiter, we create a contact and create also a relationship that we can build upon. And it is by so doing that you can get the attention of such candidates. What do we often see? For those who may have also experienced it, some of us do get poached. And what do they call poaching? Poaching is because somebody is aware of the quality of the candidate and has projected the candidate to someone else or to a would-be recruiter, and they kept talking to that individual without putting up any application. And that has happened to a lot of people. So we need to build a relationship. You can't walk up straight to someone without having to have a relationship. That's why for many of the consulting firms, they will tell you we have a database, we have a pool of people, because that is where and now they create opportunity for the passive candidate and they market them. That's where their commission sometimes comes from. So it is also important that we make effort to persuade such ones, because you need to highlight the opportunities that lies in the new opportunity or in the future for them in that job. This may include telling them about challenging projects they may be called upon to do, the opportunities for professional growth as it may be, and other perks that may be associated with this opening that is available to them. And how do we do this? Studies have also shown that employee referrals, that is the candidate that comes through your employees. And that's why, again, I said to us, the importance of the current employee cannot be overemphasized. Our current employees are actually a powerhouse. So studies have shown that if people who are referred from your current employees are 4 times more likely to be hired, because they already know the words. But how would you project someone to your business if you are unhappy with the business? So as practitioners, we need to start to look at that. We need to ensure that those who are currently with us are comfortable staying with the business so that they can actually serve as a tool for a talent pipeline. So we can explore various opportunities. I've just highlighted a few. There will be recruitment events even social or professional events like we're doing now. It's a networking opportunity. When we meet physically, hopefully tomorrow, you meet a lot of people and then you exchange thoughts and ideas and you get to know each other. And it may just be somebody who requires the skill of someone you met last week. And you say, oh, that's a professional connection. That's a network that you have taken advantage of because that opportunity prevails itself. Also, in dealing with this category of candidates who are passive, we need to have some personalized approach or personalized communication to try to align the skills that they hold to what the organization needs, because that's where they will see their relevance and the willingness to come and join such an organization. There are many other ways by which we can do this, but I've chosen to identify these as the areas by which we can attract the top talent. And I'm trying to also look at the fact that, just as I've indicated here, it is not enough to just go and hire skilled individuals. We need that environment that makes them want to remain and want to do well and want to be happy with themselves just as they're contributing to the organization, both for now and in the future. How do we do this? We need to look at their social and emotional well-being, look at their physical well-being. Is there a quality work-life balance? What is their mental state? And are we providing a safe and conducive work environment for them? If they are not happy, just like some of these pictures I've portrayed, the organization would just be struggling, and you will continue to have flight. People will keep moving, and you keep wasting time and money having to recruit replacement for such roles. So studies have also shown that many employees leave organizations for reasons, and I've highlighted about 4 or 5 of them that are very critical. But one significant thing that you will see in all of this is that it says about 70% of employees that leaves the organization, they leave only for reasons that are controllable, which means we as leaders, we as practitioners, we as people managers have influence and can control these factors. If you flip this, it therefore means that 68% of the time, practitioners or people managers in whatever form, line managers, are failed because situations and circumstances they could and should be able to control were not, and then that created attrition for the business. This is what talent lift says concerning how and why people leave. And that is significant, that they are controllable factors. The number notwithstanding, it is the fact that these are situations and circumstances that should have been and could have been controlled by those who are holding position of influence like you and me. So also, McKinsey says 51% of employees leaves because they do not feel a sense of belonging. That's part of the controllable factor, if you ask me. 54% of employees exit because of their immediate manager. I've seen another study that says about 70% does that. But let's take the lower denomination, which is 54%. 54% is also significant. That's more than half of the exits. People leave because we manage them poorly, because we do not show feelings. We do not show social connection with them. Work is not just about delivering the volume, delivering the service. It's also about their being human, and we need to treat them in that manner. Also, the inability to grow and develop career. People will not want to stall. If your business is not giving them opportunity, it does not always have to be vertical. People want to broaden their experience. They want to know a bit more than they came in or joined the business. But when we don't give them such opportunity, the best thing is to exit. So still going to talk about the employee experience, we need to know as leaders that what drives employees to quit their jobs, if we know it, we can then build a talent pipeline. We can then nurture it, manage it, and be able to keep the talents that will do the business the good that it desires and deserves for the future. So sometimes it's the lack of understanding of what drives employees. So we need to know what are the things. But oftentimes, these has an overlap. That is what makes employee to exit or to join and then to exit. They are just about the flip side of each other. So most of the attraction are also things that causes them to exit if they are not provided, or they are provided depending on the impact of implications they have. And some of these have been highlighted. I will talk in details about many of these, which includes compensation, recognition, am I recognized, development opportunity, I just spoke about that. Is there a career here, or I'm just working? What about my well-being? Is there anybody caring about my health? What type of manager do I have? Who are my co-workers? It's not just about manager, let me put it that way. Managers and co-workers quality, maybe. Who are these people? Did they create that environment? Can we work together? Do we share common goals and values? Is my work life fully integrated or harmonized? Am I just being used as a tool? Am I seen as a human being? Am I being respected? Where do I have to work? Or when do I have to work? This is also a very interesting thing to do. When do I have to work? Some work are not time bound. Don't let me use the word I had wanted to. Such that the employee is held down and he could resume to work 8, 9, depending on resumption time, and he or she does not know the closing time because the boss may have gone and do whether private or official business, and then he returns to work at 6 or 7 and says, you cannot go because I'm the boss, and he works me till 11 p.m. Is that an environment? So I do not know when, even where I know, when I know where I may be working from home, yes, but I do not know when I will close. The boss can call me at 11 and say, we'll have a meeting between 11 and 12 midnight. Some of these things are very critical and they are touchy. And those are the reasons why people may want to stay or want to leave. Technology, we cannot talk about that beyond what we already know. So all of these elements constitute the employee experience that we talk about. And all of it sits with us in HR in particular. So improving employees' experience seems to be something we need to take full care of. And like I mentioned earlier, I will just highlight a few of them because many of these are things we know. I will just share my own thoughts and experiences around some of them. Oftentimes, don't mind my pictorial here, I've deliberately used the foreign currencies because of the current trend. A lot of people want to japa, as we call them. And because they don't always want to earn more, I also understand that it's not just all about pay in some instances, but for most of them, it's about pay. But pay, as important as it seems to be, that is not what drives everybody. Pay, if you remember the various authorities in motivation, and you look at Maslow, pay would probably be to meet your basic need. And once you cross over those basic needs level, pay becomes less influential, less important, and may not actually attract or cause people to stay in employment. So we need to understand the value of pay. Yes, it's always going to be there, but it's not the most important. So why pay is important and why people want to move to where they pay more. Much more than pay, there are a lot of other things. Studies by Gartner has also shown that more than 6 out of 10, between 62 and 65% of employees in a study prefers to stay in their current job in spite of a higher pay proposal, 10% higher pay proposal, because in their current job, they have opportunity to learn new skills. They have better work-life balance. There is greater flexibility, and they have a future that is seen very clear to them. If you create such an environment, and creating an interesting career path doesn't mean, and I probably need to dwell a bit more on this, it doesn't mean that the path is firm and cast in stone. It is just that people know that here, I am not going to come in at this level and after 20 years, I'm still on the same level, and there is no job, no robustness in my job. There is no expansion. Today, firms and organizations are running flat structure. So it's not about moving vertically. It's about broadening our knowledge, broadening our skills, making people valuable, and seeing themselves as being contributors to the business in other areas, rather than just, oh, sit in on one portfolio, and that's where you are and what you'll be till the end of life. It doesn't create a challenging moment or experience for people. So they would exit. So career path as we know it is not about, oh, I've done the structure, so it shows you move in 3 years, in 5 years, in 4 years. No. Today, the world is such that people want broadened experience. They want to operate in different sphere. So I may come in as an HR person. And then if my interest is in sales, if it's in supply chain, why not give me exposure in those areas? Why not also allow me to interact in projects? Most of the time, cross-functional projects helps people to stay longer than they would have thought. So we need to understand that it's not all about that. We need to create and prioritize culture. Culture is actually where we dwell and we live. Here I said is the water that the employment swims every day, and that's the truth. Sometimes people say, I don't want to go to work, because you wake up and you feel so terrible that, wow, I'm going to that environment again. That already has told us what is happening in that environment. So is how we work here. How do we treat ourselves? How do we interact? Do we insult ourselves because we want to achieve results? Are there courtesies shared? Or is just the boss who is always right? Do they even recognize that I have values? Yes, the corporate values may be there. Is it aligned with my value? Or am I living the value? Are the bosses or the leaders living the value? Or they just mount it and they want their associate to work it? It is not going to work. We must live and create the kind of culture that would help people wanting to remain. Like my previous experience I told you about, you can take each other's food on the table. It's as simple as that. Somebody leaves his desk and he leaves a pack of biscuit. I walk through his office and oh, here is his biscuit. I take the biscuit and go, and I will leave a note. I saw that your biscuit is on the table and I have taken it. And he laughs over it. He comes to my desk, he finds something, he takes it. Yet in some other organization, you cannot even sit on another man's desk. What kind of environment is that? So the culture we create would impact whether people want to stay or they want to exit quickly, because it's a very burning surface. Nobody sits in such an environment. We all love ourselves. So we need to create a positive and impactful culture, not what we write, but what we do, what we say, how we do it, and how warmly we treat people as human in whatever interactions we have with them. Again, trust is an element that you cannot take away. I've always said that businesses or relationships are based on trust. And you can only do well to the extent to which you have trusted people. There is no organization that runs, even in one-man businesses, they employ people. So you cannot just be only one who trusted himself or herself. Businesses are run and done on trust. And that gives people a feeling of acceptance, comfort. So if we do not trust our leaders, there is no way we will follow them. And indeed, if the leaders have workforce that they cannot trust, it's better they dump the entire process and move on, because those relationships are very critical. And to get the trust of each other, we must communicate, we must share information, we must share our thoughts, we must be transparent and open to each other. So it is important that as leaders and even as followers, we build trust. But once trust is also abused, it takes even longer time to build. So we need to understand that we need to entrust the business and everything we do to the people we work with. If you do not trust someone, it is most appropriate that that person excuse that team, and that is the best solution. But to tolerate someone you don't trust and you keep avoiding or not assigning assignment, that is a poison that you are leaving in the business. And that is why sometimes the disengaged or partially disengaged employees are more dangerous than those who are apparent, who clearly says, I'm exiting. So we need to be conscious that sometimes we are responsible for that. If the guy is not trustworthy, it is important that we engage such a one, let them know, or exit such a person in terms of building and leading with trust. We must first lead with trust and trust people so that we can build back their trust. Also, we need to give opportunities, and I've spoken about this earlier. People must be able to see the future clearly. They must be able to say, oh, this is a place to be, not one in which they just feel, well, I'm earning my pay. For as long as they pay me, that's not a good organization, and that's not a good experience. Once an employee says, oh, as long as they pay me, be conscious of the fact that there is something to be worried about in such an environment. People want to see themselves doing well and the organization doing well. How do we do that? We can have a handshake. We can actually also mentor upcoming leaders, and we can set up a mentoring scheme. It's not always often the best or the most appropriate thing to set a formal structure, but where the business can afford it, it is always beautiful. Where the business cannot afford it, we should know that as leaders, there are people looking up to us, but we should be conscious about it and be deliberate or intentional in leading some of the people, sharing the values of the business with them, showing them the direction the business wants to go, and it helps them to want to remain because they have an understanding of the bigger picture. But sometimes we don't share these things even as leaders, and people are lost because they cannot see the future beyond where they are. So these are some of the challenges that we as HR and leaders need to look at. How often do we engage people? How often do we show them, oh, the big picture and the bright future that we're trying to create for the business? It is not just only about creating the future. It is also about recognizing people for what they have done in whatever way they have contributed. Sometimes it is about pay. When you do individual or group performance recognition, yes, you pay people either by their individual contribution, or when your goal is about group, you don't go and do individual because someone will outshine the others, and yet you will not be able to meet the goal. So you need to pair people up together and say, come, you guys would earn this if you achieve this. But if it is a personal or individual, a task that can be achieved by an individual, you set a parameter. And once the individual attain or achieve it, it is often and always important that we give recognition to it. Recognition, in my own view, is not always by pay. A tap on the back, a handshake to some people worth more. I can tell you in my limited experience that I've seen people say, oh, okay, so you know my name. Only because of the courtesy, the name, and a tap on the back. Say, wow, you know me? And I say, I know you did this, you did that. And they will be excited and happy about the fact that, oh, so that little contribution is recognized and is said in the open space that, oh, I did this. That helps people to want to hang on. We must also live the values of the organization. And how do I mean? Punishment is a reward, as many of us will know. Punishment is a reward. It's pointing to you that, sorry, this is unacceptable in this environment. So I deliberately chose that example so that we will know that it's not always when you give people positive things. Also, a negative feedback is when you punish people and it tells them this is unacceptable in this environment. Nobody wants to be put to shame. So we must live those values. We must recognize those who have had sterling performance, those whom customers have come to give feedback to say, oh, they're doing so well, they helped me in this matter. We should also, the world has changed, and in a fast changing world, creativity and innovation cannot be underestimated. You need to recognize people for their attempt, for their creativity, and for bringing, even if it's an item or service of propriety that you will take propriety on in the future, you need to recognize those who brought it to bear. And they are not always very expensive, I must say. So we don't look at the very expensive ones. A certificate of recognition, a certificate of appreciation, may worth more than 1 million to someone. Let me share an experience also again here. I worked in a food manufacturing business at a time, and a storekeeper on a Saturday when all of us were not at work, the warehouse, we do not know, has already a leaking part on the roof. And the weather became so cloudy that year, and it rained cat and mouse. There was a hole that would have destroyed the whole carton of products that we kept in the warehouse that day. What did this guy do? He tried to move out some cartons and left the space. And outside of that, he put a tarpaulin. I do not know where he saw the tarpaulin, just to cover the splashes. So not even splashes could get to those cartons. What did we do? We didn't give him the money. We gave him plaque. We called him out in a village meeting or town hall meeting, as we call it, and he had a handshake of the MD and a lunch date with the MD. Except now that I cannot say, the guy hung the picture in his living room, and he said he never knew he could have a handshake with the MD. For him to have lunch with the MD and the leadership team, those are impressive things that recognizes little achievements. It's not only when the business makes all the profit and we're doing profit sharing. We must recognize every little contributions that people made, and it makes this more valuable, and they want to stay where they are better recognized and given sense of belonging. I also need to say that it is not just about all that have been said. We need to take feedback from our employees, from our colleagues, because that is how businesses can do well. When you collect and analyze data from those whom the shoe pinches, we would, as leaders, be able to deal with the issues that surrounds their well-being, and their feelings would be taken into consideration as we take decision, which therefore means we should guide ourselves, taking insights from these people to lead them into actions. Sometimes, again, part of the retention strategy that has worked in my own limited experience is the fact that oftentimes we understate what reward is. People go back home and say, I earn X, while in the truth, their cost to the business is X plus. And so the fact that oftentimes we lack the ability to show people the value of their reward or their cost to business makes people to want to keep hopping from one location to the other. To be candid, what is considered as benefit in some places that is taken for granted is what you lack in another. So we need to be able to communicate effectively what we are given as employer to employees in terms of total reward, which would make them to evaluate themselves and say, oh, what is valuable to me? For instance, depending on the age bracket or where the employee is in the stage of life, to give a retirement benefit scheme to a generation Z now, it says to you, I still have about 30 years, so what does this one mean to me? So he wants the money. But to say to somebody, I will give your children scholarship in his mid-40s or late 30s, he would certainly jump at that because that is a need at that point in time. So we need to look at what works for the collectivity of people that works with us. What stage of life are they? What will be their peculiar needs? And once we are able to do this, the likelihood that we'll do well in keeping them in the business becomes stronger. May I also send this warning to all of us that people want their freedom. They want to be flexible. So our responsibility as managers is not to sit with people to do the assignment. Our responsibilities as people manager is to show the vision, show the bigger picture, and let the people know the deliverables and allow them to exhibit their skills and their talents. But oftentimes, people get rebuffed because they are given assignments and the boss still sits with them wanting to know how you do it. You should not clone yourself. I need to say to all of us, we don't need to clone ourselves. And the more we keep people who are just like us, the more harm we are causing the business, because the business is going to just have people like me all over. But we need to have people who can think differently, who are allowed flexibility, and who can do what they need to do. And this again brings me to the fact that we need to create some issues around diversity, equity, and inclusiveness. And this has been a subject that people of late has become something that we must be sensitive to. We must clearly be sensitive to creating an environment where everyone sees and have the feelings of belonging, and they think their thoughts and ideas are being welcomed, irrespective of their physical or social status. Glassdoor research has shown that 67% of people looking for a job always also look at diversity. And it's a very important factor, whether they want to work or not. It's even more important for this current generation. In my past experience too, I used to work in a multinational, and at a time, the workforce was overpopulated in quotes now, by a section of the nationality in which that company was. And a deliberate effort was made to go look for employees, top talents in those other regions that are not well represented. Let me tell you, this is not one of the most favorable instances that people will say, oh, it worked. It worked only partially. I'll tell you why. When we got application from the same region, most of the applicants are people from the region that we have classified as overpopulated in that business. So we needed to do a bit more study, and that study shows that in this other environment, this is not the kind of things they want to do. So if you want to force and bring such people in the equal numbers, you may also be failing the system. So please, why am I saying this? No one cap size fits all. What works for another organization in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusiveness may not be exactly the same for your own organization, because you have your own peculiarity. And again, research has shown that a more diverse ethnic company or organization will do better, because people will bring in different thoughts and ideas. And even when you are selling product, people from those environment who are familiar with the terrain will share thoughts and help you grow as a business better than when you have just your myopic and personal view or perception of another part of the business. But if you have a mixed or diverse workforce, it can help both in the making and the delivery of whatever the product or service may be. Little things that brings belongingness is some of these things that I've shown. People must feel sense of welcome. They must believe that their thoughts and ideas are also shared, even if it's not taken. The fact that you are allowed to share your thoughts and view and is looked at gives some level of comfort. As I try to conclude now, I know I've spent some time, I just highlighted a few other retention strategies or initiatives that we can adopt. Offer generous paid off time. And it is not just about leave alone. Let me also give an instance here. I once worked in an organization where a young lady, very promising young lady, came in, and at about the time for confirmation, just about 4 or 5 months in the business, says, I want to go for this spiritual exercise. That takes about a month. They are going on the trips. So he says, I want to go for 1 month. I'm sure many of us would have known those kind of exercises. And here is somebody who is yet to be confirmed. And by the rules of the game, he will say, oh, you are not qualified for leave. And so he went to everybody, and everybody says, no, you can't go. And the young lady became so upset that, what do we mean she cannot go? Then we sat down and I said, sorry, if she has done 6 months or thereabout, let's prorate. When that was done, it wasn't enough. Then our ingenuity as a team came out. Why am I telling this story? We then gave her the more days. and said to her, you would have this deducted from your next hand leave. Looking at it from the hand side, the lady at the point at which we came up with this idea came back and said, I was already thinking I wanted to resign. You could see how little it seems to most people who are managing. The lady says, I want to go and perform a spiritual exercise. Your rule says I cannot go now, but I needed to leave. And here is a top talent who will exit in less than 6 months. So we said, go. We will use this as part of your next leave. You know what happened? The lady was in the business for a minimum of 10 years. And sometimes when we talk together, he says, it's because of those things you people did at that time. When you allowed me to go and perform the exercise, I kept looking at, okay, if they can tolerate that. Yes, there may have been so many more things that are done, but we need to be sensitive and be flexible to what happens. Paternity and maternity leave, flexibility of work hours, this has even become more important in view of the fact that we're currently even having a conference that is hybrid, so people can be doing so many things at the same time, thanks to COVID on that. Businesses must not always look at themselves alone. We need to be sure about the well-being of those who makes the value that we're looking at or looking for. So it is important. It may not be that we're footing the bill just in the hospital. Exposing people to knowledge of what is capable of happening, the risk they can go through, or what and how they can manage certain circumstances is a platform that people cherish. It may not cost us so much, but it is something that people look forward to. I am privileged to have worked and still working in an organization that does that very well. You cannot tell me you lack knowledge about wellness, because it is always thrown at your face every 2 weeks at the minimum. So virtually all topics around that could help you is always available to you and your family. There should be, if the business or the organization is able to do this, fitness center. And I will say this again, I've also enjoyed this in another company, even though I may not have enjoyed it to the fullest by myself. But the fact that the facility was there, when we close at 5, you will see some of my colleagues who will be in the fitness center in the premises of the organization till 7, when that facility will close. At the time, we made it flexible. During your lunch break, you have 1 hour. So we opened it again for those who want to do in between and who cannot wait till evening. And that makes it an environment where people would always want to be. So please, you can look at what fits and what works for you. It is also important that we give feedback. We don't wait for performance review. For an organization that wants to be successful, performance review is done by way of feedback, either weekly, monthly, bi-monthly, or in as timeously as you can do it, rather than waiting for end of year. When you are doing that at the end of year, you're only reviewing your losses. You are not propelling yourself to any success. So it's important that we have face-to-face feedback. Everyday interaction at various meetings are also pointing to whether we're doing well or we're not doing well. And finally, I would like to say that we should also learn from those who are leaving the business. Exit interview, many people will say, oh, it's just documentation. No. Before they exit, there will be some signs. And when they are exiting, they would be more courageous. Even if they are at the lower level, they will be more courageous to tell you what propelled them to exit the business. And we can then go back and review ourselves as a business or as a leader. Where and what did I miss out that made this happen if a top talent is exiting? And what should I block to ensure that my talent pipeline is not leaking? As I conclude, I would like to say, when employees at your company are as comfortable at work as they are at home, you will have no shortage of enthusiastic workforce willing to give their best. And you are sure that there will be advocates to bring in more talents through your door. And finally, employees and job candidates now look far beyond salary, like I did said earlier on, when deciding whether to remain in the organization or perhaps to even join the organization. While great compensation and benefits still matters, yes, factors like inspired company culture, that is the environment that we have created, and truly engaging work are far more important than even the pay. In short, people are looking for a great employee experience that lasts from the moment they apply for a job. So it could even be before they come for your interview, the way we behave at interviews, the way we behave even when they are coming on board, until the day they leave the organization. What do you do in your own organization? Perhaps I may ask. How do you play in all of this? Again, I would like to say that there is no one cap fits all, but we can always take the benefits of what we can do to influence, to bring in people and to keep them working with us. I would like to say thank you for this opportunity, and it's a great privilege to talk to people of Ogun State Branch. Thank you very much.
Wow, wow, wow. Please, can we put our digital hand together for Mr. Adebayo? Please, let's make it bigger and better. Let's make it bigger and better. Let's make it bigger and better. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you too.
We have indeed soaked in knowledge, immense knowledge from your wealth of experience. So we want to take questions now. We have learned so far how to attract talent, various platforms where they are. You know, we were reminded that on LinkedIn now, we can be exposed to a pool of talent, you know, far beyond our geographical location, far beyond our imagination. And how we were also given strategies on how to retain them. Everything is not about our salary and various, there's no size fits all when it comes to motivation, when it comes to what to do to these employees to retain them. You know, we need to understand their need per time and then know what to present to them in terms of recognition to be able to retain them. Fantastic session, fantastic session. And we are grateful to God that this session is recorded. We will sell this video to you at the rate of $200 each. Those in support say aye. The nays can hold their peace. $200 per video, because we know this is a session that all of you will want to revisit again and again. Somebody is already saying, or somebody is saying, no, 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 no. That shows this session is indeed very rich and loaded. Thank you very much, Uncle Tunde Adebayo. And we are proud to announce that he's one of our godfathers in Ogun State, even though Lagos State wants to poach him away from us. They released him to Ogun, and so we are not letting him go. Now we will take questions, and I can see hands. I'm also looking at the chat room here. I'm looking at the chat room if we have questions here, but maybe we'll start with those having their hands raised. We start with those having their hands raised, and we're going to call on Ejibunurazak to please unmute and ask his question. Please go ahead, sir. Mr. Razak. Are you there? Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
sir.
I never meant to actually ask a question. I was only trying to comment, but I mistakenly pressed the one that is showing that I needed an answer to a question. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Next, we have Louis Oga. Please hold on. Just hold on. The reason we've had a decent meeting so far is because we are managing it well, so that there is no noise interference. Mr. Louis Oga, you can please unmute and ask your question or make your contributions.
Oh, sorry, it was not, I was not intending to ask a question. I was only wanted to applaud the speaker and I mistakenly pressed that. It's quite impactful.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. So you can please unmute and let me just remove certain rights from you so we can continue to have a decent meeting. Now, Aromolate Alex, I hope it's not that you two are trying to applaud the speaker. So you can please unmute and speak.
Good afternoon, House. Thank God for this conference. This session is very impactful. My question is, in the course of transferring an employee in your organization, what parking allowance, emolument that wants to make that employee move to that location should be made impactful? Thank you.
Okay, I know he's sounding like an ROCCG staff. If that is ROCCG related, then there is a session to address all this tomorrow during the breakout sessions. You know, this is a policy issue. Organizations have their policies. I'm sure he will address it, but it will be better addressed specifically tomorrow. So do we continue taking questions? So you address all of them together, or you want to?
Let's take two more. Let's take.
Oh, okay. Two more. Oh, okay. Okay. I think Aromolate has spoken. Bolasire Olubukunmi. Bolasire Olubukunmi, you can please unmute and ask your question.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm so happy to be a part of this conference. The question I have is, we have learned about motivating employee so that we can retain them. My question now is, and over time, we have discovered the abuse in this area, that what you tend to do to motivate your employee is now becoming a law over you. At one point, can this be abused? What can the employer do in a situation like this? Thank you, sir.
Sorry, for reasons of explicitity, can I ask that you be a bit specific? Because it sounds a bit more general.
Okay, sir. For instance, you have your employees, try to motivate them one time or the other, maybe like monetary aspect, financially. One can use finance to motivate one's employees. Maybe, for instance, somebody is going home, you say, okay, take this one, you did well today, take this one, add to your maybe transport fare once in a while, and it's almost becoming a law over you trying to motivate them. I'm just using that one as an example. There are other ways to motivate the employees. So in an attempt to try to retain them, not allow them to exit the business, assessing their potential so that they can contribute to the growth of the business. So we have many of them these days now trying to turn it to a law or being over expectant on things like that. How can a business manager undo that that matter? That's my question.
Thank you. I'll take it.
Okay. Now, let me just remove so that we won't have noise. Okay. Solomon Bolu is one of the conference planning committee member. Please, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, ma. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Good afternoon, sir.
I want to thank God for our last facilitator for the insightful teaching. My question is, in a workplace environment where you think there are some considerations you have put in place in rotating people within the same organization, and you have some of the employees who feel you're moving them is not right at the time you are moving them, and a lot of things have been put into consideration before the movement, yet they are not understanding. What do you do at this point? Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So that would be all for now. You can please respond to the question, sir.
Okay. Let me take this last one first. An employee or a group of employees who are objecting to job rotation or redeployment.
Transfer, as we call it.
Okay, transfer.
Yes.
I hope I'm correct. Transfer. Transfer for me is okay. Transfer for me means you're probably relocating. You're moving from
location to location. Yes, sir.
One point to the other. However, my thought around job rotation or redeployment is that employees also need to have input. Don't forget, even when we were discussing, people may not see the big picture, and that is often the case. And I can also use myself as an example. I rotated from HR into core operations and eventually became the general manager managing a manufacturing outfit from a core HR background. The tendency, if you are not prepared for it at all, is first and foremost you put up resistance. But when leaders or managers, as we tend to see ourselves, invites people to share their goals and their vision and why someone is the best fit for the job or the role, it gives them comfort and the confidence that some people are also supporting them, even when they nurse the inner fear that will I be successful here, except it's punitive. And where is punitive also? Transparency. The individual must know. But typically, transfers for me are not supposed to be punitive, because when you transfer someone for punitive reasons, you're just giving him the space to go and further destroy that place or the role that you're putting such a person into. So basically, employees need to be carried along in more decent environment, even when the decision has been made. Before any announcement is made, employees are called in to say you are going to be relocating into this role. It gives them the opportunity to also ruminate over it, engage the leadership as to whether they see it as something they want to do or something they do not want to do. But it is also inappropriate for employees to gang up against employer and say, I'm not going to go to where you have found job for me. From the professional angle, the employer will be at liberty to excuse such an employee. It is most appropriate if you think, sorry, I'm not going to be here, and the business has looked at everything possible and you are not fit for any other thing, it is more honorable to take an exit rather than forcing the business to kick one out of the business. Thank you. That's what I would say on that one. We need to engage ourselves before the transfer and redeployment takes place, and where we don't still come to common ground, either of the party can take an excuse. That's one. For Mr. Gbolasiri, Olubukumi, you said abuse of motivation. Let me start with this. I quite agree and acknowledge the fact that you use the monetary example, but my viewpoint on motivating people is that we do not motivate people with money. Don't forget that in the course of our discussion, I said pay is important, but there are other things that are more important. But for pay to not acquire a dominant influence on what your staff will do or will not do, there is a need to make the pay relatively competitive. Yes, I know we are all challenged at this point in time. Companies and organizations are all struggling to get the employees to even have a take-home pay. And we do various things now. I don't want to dwell on that now, to ensure that even if I'm not increasing your pay, I'm increasing something or giving away something that makes you feel that you can survive in this very tough environment. But that being the case, the first fundamental thing is that our pay or compensation should in itself be adequate and competitive. Otherwise, whether we like it or not, people will want to look for how to augment a situation where they are underpaid. So we need to first take that out of the way. So if I then feel like giving you something for a good job, my typical recommendation, and if you go back into our discussion, will be that I give you things that are more valuable but not monetary. And even if they have monetary value, I will give you in kind. If you choose to sell such things, it is your own challenge. I can say this, that at a certain level, and I know I have encountered this a couple of times, and so I will give you one of the examples. I used to have various kind of employees who comes and say, this is happening in my family, that's happening in my family. And I will use a particular guy. First thing, something happened, and I said, come and see me in 2 days' time. So 2 days' time, I was ready to part with something. So I gave something. Few weeks after, another something happened. So I gave it time to say, okay, I will help you again. So I gave. By the time the third one happened, it called to my senses that, sorry, I am starting something that I will not be able to manage. And so I called that guy and I said, I hear you. The fact that I've done what I've done in those 2 instances are because I know you are a good staff. But your reputation is at stake if you do this to all of your leaders. I do not know how many of us you are doing this to. And then he came and said, oh, my wife gave birth. And I said, and so? If your wife gave birth, you have 9 months to do the planning. So why are you coming to pressurize people that your wife gave birth? So we should shy away. This is my advice. Shy away from giving money exceptionally to people. The way this is narrated is such that you are actually giving to one individual, or except you are giving across board. And if you then are giving across board, doesn't matter what value, I would advise that you actually incorporate it into the pay structure so that nobody feels left out or nobody start to feel these are the preferred or gas boys or gas ladies. So it is important that we put a structure around the board. Yes, in appreciating staff, you recall I said things like you give a token, you give a lunch, you give a plaque. Those things are valuable. Sometimes some people see it in their homes and it brings remembrance of what brought that about. But if you have given the money, the man has spent it immediately. He may have even forgotten that you gave him money, but you will remember you did. So let's do less of monetary reward, except it is inescapable. You cannot avoid but to do it. But where you can do, I think other recognition or reward system helps better than giving pay, so that people will not abuse it. Even though other privileges may also be abused, but they can also be controlled. But they will be better controlled, and it will not give you exposure because there will be transparency around it. I hope that helps in a way. And if it doesn't, we can take it up again in a different dimension if you feel so. Mr. Louis August says parking transfer or transfer allowance. What is ideal is what I will ask. This is something that is peculiar to each organization. We always have policies around when I move you, what would you be entitled to? And that is the fact that you are relocating in itself. It's not because I moved you into. So if I'm transferring you out of Lagos into Ogun State, as close as they are, there's a rate by which I would calculate what is due to you. And there are also criteria by which you do that. So I do not know. And it's organization specific. Some will do lump sum and say, irrespective, if I transfer you out of this place, for instance, if I take you to Kano, and I give you the same thing I give the man I transfer to Shagamu to Redemption Camp from Lagos. Is it equitable? No, it's not. But what is ideal, because over time, every organization will do a study. In my limited experience, what we do is, hello, somebody says I'm not hearing you.
We can hear you, sir. We can hear you, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay. So over time, businesses, organizations would also review this rate. It's an ongoing rate. So it's not it's fixed for a time, but when the economic circumstance or situation has made it necessary for it to be reviewed, organizations will do that. But my straight answer is this is organization specific. You must know the peculiarity of that organization. Why did they set it up? How much is involved? What are the parameters before you can actually deal with this, whether it's fair or not? And you may find it difficult to compare two organizations, except where they are unionized and these rates have been determined by the various negotiations that they have gone into. Thank you very much. These are the three questions that have come to me, and I hope I've dealt with them.